One day, the human world was invaded by monsters from another dimension. No one knows why it happened. Countless cultures and legends intertwined and emerged in the human world, which carried great danger. But at the same time, cards containing unfathomable power have emerged. Over time, some people were able to harness the power of these cards. They learned how to use them in battle and successfully repel monster raids. For their skills, they were nicknamed the Card Masters. These men became the last hope of mankind. Among the chosen card masters was a very unassuming guy named Gene. Although he could control the power of the cards, his abilities were quite meager. But a couple days ago, when he was passing by the card market, a card amplification system suddenly appeared in front of him. One that no one had heard of until then. At the market, he bought the cheapest card possible, as Jin lived quite poorly and didn't have enough money for something better. And then Jin spent the rest of the money on beautiful women's clothes. All this to test out the new card reinforcement system. But how can women's clothing help with that? It's very simple. The card that Jin bought at the market was Modest Girl. So after buying anything that can boost a girl's confidence, Jin set about boosting the card. But after the amplification, our hero found himself in some very strange world. Here, everything was upside down. Each plot of land was separate from each other, which was connected by a narrow passage. Coming out of the dense forest, Jin noticed a sad girl. When he looked closely, he realized it was the same girl from his map. Which means that our hero has entered the world of maps. But it was almost impossible to believe something like that. So Jin pulled out his new card to check again. And yes, there was no doubt about it. It was the girl on his card. At first, Jin tried to talk to her, but the girl just ignored him. Then he decided to enter her house. A horrible picture awaited him inside. There was old dilapidated furniture everywhere, and the walls of the house were covered with mold. After looking at her house, Jin realized why his card had such a low score. Leaving his gift on the table, Jin put the letter on top. When suddenly the girl stopped crying and got to her feet. When she entered the house, she found a gift left by a better man. The girl couldn't believe it was a gift for her, because no one had ever done anything like this for her before. Not even for her birthday. Text of the letter. All pain and hardship will be food for your growth. Walking the right path, there's no point in being afraid of the long road. The main thing is to believe in yourself. Putting the letter aside, the girl took the things that lay underneath it. She clutched them to her chest and began to cry. And then, like any girl would, I ran right out to try them on. Of course. It was a very revealing outfit, but it emphasized all the advantages of her body. After getting dressed, the girl walked over to the broken mirror, and for a few minutes just stared at herself. As she suddenly began to cry, tears rolling down her cheeks one by one. And then the girl said in a trembling voice, "Whoever you are, thank you so much. I will never forget it." Watching the girl cry alone and for new clothes made the genie incredibly sad, because he and she are alike in some ways. They both lost everything they cared about. Although it's still unknown if the world inside the maps is actually real, but still, Jin hoped he could help this girl. While Jin was back in the real world, a year had passed in the world of cards. The girl hid the clothes that were dear to her and never put them on again. And at the awakening ceremony a few days later, the headman who hated her only awakened a G-rank skill, while she also awakened a B-rank skill, the highest level among all of them. The girl has been diligently practicing her skill in school. Hopefully her efforts will meet the expectations of the mysterious benefactor. After which, Jin received congratulations from the system and notifications that he now possessed a Shadow Claw card named Ellis. The useless wooden card has been strengthened to bronze of the 3rd rank, in addition to gaining 4 new skills. Jin couldn't believe his eyes because this was a very expensive battle card. If you sold it on the market, you could make a fortune. But after what he saw, Jin couldn't just do that. After all, she was also a living person, albeit living in another world. So Jin was determined that he would never sell that card. More importantly, the idea of becoming a master of the card had been rekindled in him, when suddenly, the card began to emit a rainbow glow and its temperature increased dramatically. After a moment, this glow began to penetrate Jin, and our hero felt his spiritual power begin to grow at an amazing rate. There are also jade souls that are divided into 4 types: wood, bronze, silver, and gold. The condensation of a jade soul in the card world signifies the birth of a master of cards. Talented Karta disciples usually constantly improve their spiritual power through meditation until the brain ceases to develop upon reaching 18 years of age, sealing the jade soul and becoming a Karta master. Due to Jin having saturated himself with the spiritual energy of a rank 3 card, his jade soul was now at the bronze level. The strength levels of the cards are subdivided from weak to strong: wood, bronze, silver, gold, and all these frames are subdivided into 10 classes. Map types are categorized into human map, magic map, territory map, and others. In fact, the people summoned by the character card are not real people, but a mirror image made up of the card's energy. Although summoned characters are not themselves, they still retain some of their consciousness and obey the commands of their card master. Typically, character cards have the same intelligence as their master, so they can be ordered to fight. However, if given the proper order, contact between the character and the master will be broken, and the ability to use the card will be permanently lost. Perhaps through his own effort, Jin felt a deep connection towards this girl. If you continue to take care of your card, the relationship between character and master will grow stronger and stronger. As far as we know, even the noblest profession among card masters is the master of amplification. Being able to amplify cards without having a clear idea, the master of amplification can get map information directly, travel the world exactly like our hero. Since Jin visited the card world, he has evolved considerably, which opens up a lot of new opportunities for our hero. The only thing to do is to take advantage of them. The card world is certainly good, but we shouldn't forget about the real world. After the genie raised his spiritual level to bronze, he came to the registration center to sign up for the registry. But most importantly, he is rewarded with one of many cards. The registration center has a so-called hearth, where masters can receive new cards. As a rule of thumb, the cards pulled from this hearth are worthless, wood-class type cards. And in this case, our hero was no exception. He received a card of the first rank, a lost fox cub. Of course, this card is completely useless right now, but Jin intends to strengthen it. Let our hero not yet fully understand exactly how card amplification works. Jin decided to keep his head down to avoid revealing his ability. Hiding his new card, Jin was about to leave when suddenly someone shouted, "Freeze!" That voice sounded painfully familiar to our hero. He turned around and saw his former friend named Derek standing in front of him. The only thing you need to know about him is that he's an incredibly mean and nasty man. The whole time Jin and Derek had known each other, the other had convinced our hero that he would be trash all his life. As Derek suddenly said, "Remember I said people like you would own trash cards. Now that we've both become card masters, it's time to put my prophecy to the test. As payment in battle, the winner takes the loser's card," added Derek. As horrible a man as he was, but a master of cards, he was very, very good. The masters don't live the most peaceful lives. The true reason for the academy is to train fighters for battle with another dimension. In fact, the academy even encourages battles between students. Even aside from Jin's personal dislike of Derek, he would have agreed to the duel anyway, because our hero needs more cards at the moment. Before the fight, Derek said he saw Jin pull out a wooden map. The guy was sure it was the only card in our hero's arsenal, so he was 100% sure of his victory. Since he himself possessed a bronze card of the second rank, students don't usually have cards of this power. As a rule, students have cards of at most third-rank wooden cards, which is why Derek is considered the strongest student in the entire academy. After activating the card, the training room was filled with black fog. This meant that Derek possessed the territory expansion skill. Actually, it was even better for the genie. Alice's skills were sharpened for killing from the shadows. But it's too early to reveal all your major trump cards, but you can't do nothing. So with the first card, Jin activated the Lost Fox Cub. In such a state, this beast can do absolutely nothing but evoke pity. But this is a feeling unknown to Derek. He kicked the little animal with all the force he had. Feeling absolute superiority, the guy said, "Trash is trash. Even the card stretched out in the arc is trash. To be honest, I even once thought you weren't that pathetic. But now I despise you," Derek added. And then he decided to humiliate Jin as best he could by beating him with his bare fists. But the genie is no fool. He was only using the fox as a distraction to stealthily use his strongest card. Alice could take Derek's life with just one swing of her dagger. But instead, the girl just slammed her boot into his face, knocked out a couple of teeth in the process, and the force of the blow was so great that it even threw Derek back a few meters. Coming to his senses, Derek said, "What was that just now? How did you attack me? You're just trash with a wooden card. Maybe you got an ace in your pocket you don't want to talk about." But then Derek laughed like a madman and added, "I was kidding. A trash like you can't have any trumps." Standing up on his feet, Derek pulled out another bronze bat card. It was the strongest attack card in his arsenal. Before he could activate it, Elise popped out from behind him and kicked him in the face again. Her shadow attack skill is amazing. But Derek wasn't going to just stand there and wait to be killed. He decided to counterattack the girl as quickly as possible. But Elise's agility was far greater than the trees. No matter how hard he tried, his fists couldn't reach Elise. just as Alice jumped away from the tree and disappeared into the black fog, using the invisibility skill. Afterward, Jin walked over to the Derek and tapped him on the shoulder. Turning around, the guy saw our hero's fist flying into his face. Falling to the floor, Derek couldn't believe what had happened. That he, the best student at the academy, had lost to a piece of trash like Jin. The fight wasn't over yet. After a short pause, Derek said, "Even I was only given one card by the academy. Where did you get the second one from?" And our hero just ignored the question, which made Derek even more furious and activated the Bat Party card. Is a card that creates a small protective field around its user, from which swarms of bats emerge. Jin had nothing else to defend himself with. He'd already used all his cards. But then Alice reappeared out of nowhere. Even though Jin hadn't ordered her to defend herself, our hero thought the girl had gone home. I guess her instinct for self-preservation kicked in. If something happened to the genie, she'd be in a bad position, too. Especially since it's easy for Alice to deal with a small bunch of bats. In a matter of seconds, the girl killed about 40 tree bats. That was the end of it. Realizing that his opponent was now in a stupor, Jin decided to finish him off. What, if anything, should be considered a victory in a student fight? After all, they're not fighting to the death. When Derek's black fog lifted, everyone could see our hero's superiority. I guess that counts as a victory. As they had agreed, after his victory, Jin took one of the Derek cards. As a reward, Jin took the Black Mist. Not that he had a choice, but even if he did, he would have chosen this card, because it complemented Alice's card perfectly. Now Jin has 3 cards, 2 of which are bronze rank. Plus, they reinforce each other. The first thing Jin wanted to do was to deal with the Lost Fox's map. Like Alice, this map also has only one way to improve. You have to take the fox to the snowy plains where his family is. There was one problem though. Even with the reinforced body of a card master, it's pretty hard to withstand the low temperatures, and Jin doesn't have any decent warm clothes. Plus, besides clothes, Jin didn't have the money to buy them. For understanding, Jin didn't even have enough money to buy his own food. So our hero decided to put on his warmest clothes and head out into the snowy plains. After reinforcing the lost fox, he planned to sell this card to make some money. But first, we have to find the little fox and then his family. Luckily, not far from where Jin showed up, he found the fox cub. Jin had only been in the snowy plains for a few minutes, but he could already feel the cold lowering his reserve of spiritual energy, and that's when he realized he needed help. And the only ones who could help him in this world were the locals. So he called Alice. Apparently, the girl could withstand extremely low temperatures without much trouble, so she was perfect for the role of an assistant. Jin spent the whole day looking for the fox cub's family, but all to no avail. Our hero exhausted almost all of his spiritual power in just one day of searching. Besides, all the supplies Jin took with him, he gave to the fox. His reserves, his spiritual energy, was rapidly running out. So Jin was forced to stop his search and return home. But then Alice showed up. She pointed our hero to a rock nearby. Looking closely, Jin saw a pair of adult snow-white foxes on it, who were the parents of our fox cub, which means that the conditions for reinforcement were successfully met. And just by this point, Jin's supply of spiritual energy had completely dried up, and the card world forcibly returned him home. Like last time, after the reinforcement conditions were met, the card world evolved. After Jin left, the white fox waited for 3 days at the place where our hero disappeared, but decided to leave. Under the protection of her parents, she left the snowy plains and returned to the forest. But one day the forest was invaded, and Father Fox was killed by a tyrant mantis while purifying his family. After that, the foxes went into hiding for a long time. As a result, Jin received another bronze card of the 3rd rank. The fox was named Snowball. Of the skills he had a charm, an aerial gait, a dodge, and an armored tail. Even though Jin had strengthened the card, he was still upset about not being able to prevent the tragedy from happening. It was a shame that Jin had exhausted all his spiritual power while he was in the world of cards. But for reinforcement, the genie will get a new boost of spiritual energy from the snowball. After being saturated, the energized genie strengthened his soul. He was already 9% closer to the silver rank. The first level of bronze has already reached its peak. Once it reaches 10%, the genie will be able to move on to the 2nd bronze level. But after comprehending the 1st rank, the energy still continued to flow strongly. After only 3 hours of meditating and absorbing the card's energy, the genie managed to reach the 2nd level of bronze. Now Jin's card reinforcement has been unlocked. To reinforce the snowball again, our hero needs to defeat the tyrant mantis. The fox father was at bronze level 8 and lost. So now the Ganon was clearly unable to face this monster. And then Jean decided to see what conditions were required to strengthen Alice. And one of the enhancement options was to merge Alice with Black Mist. Normally, a successful merger requires a special person to pick the card. But Jean has a system that shows the probability of a successful merger. And in the case of Alice and Black Mist, the probability of a successful merger is 100%. The fusion process is quite simple. You just need to summon a basic card and infuse it with an additional card. But what's going on in the world of cards at that moment? No one has ever thought about that. Meanwhile, Alice was in her world practicing as always. Just as suddenly something with unrealistic speed slammed into the back of the girl's head. After that, the girl briefly lost consciousness, and when she woke up, she felt a strong burst of strength, which eventually turned into a terrible pain that pierced her entire body. And a black mist began to come out of Elise's body. By curbing the pain, Elise was able to absorb the black fog. This means that the girl gained a new territorial skill that will take her fighting ability to a whole new level. After her second awakening, Alice never relaxed and finally earned the title of #1 hero in her town. The elders praised her abilities and trained her in the skill of Shadowgate. After practicing hard, she still managed to learn this ability, after which her strength steadily increased. After the merge, Alice's Shadow Fang card received the 5th bronze rank. In addition to strengthening the existing skills, the Shadowgate skill also appeared. It turns out, by reinforcing the card in the real world, Jean has given Alice a new skill in the card world, except that the spiritual energy she received from it was very low, as she had only advanced 2 ranks. It seems that interfering with the strengthening of cards directly in the card world is much more beneficial than combining cards. In order to better understand the card world, and in general to get to know its inhabitants better, Jean decided that he would go to the card world more often. The next morning, Jin decided to check on what place in the academy rankings he was currently at. To encourage competition among cardmasters, 3rd Medium Academy created a spiritual rating, updated daily. At the end of the month, the top 3 cardmasters can receive a new card as a reward. Before, Jin couldn't even think about entering the rankings, but now he must do his best to enter the top 3. But as of today, our hero was not in this top. Let me tell you more. He was not even in the top 10. And in first place was a girl named Lydia. Lydia and Taylor are sisters of the Zhang Company. The older sister, Taylor, got the gold card some time ago, and the younger sister, Lydia, is at the top of the academy rankings. In other words, right now, the top is a cardmaster with a bronze rank 5. Jin is clearly no match for her with her 2nd rank. But if you use the improvement system wisely, it is quite possible to get into the top 3 by the end of the month. But you have to be extremely careful. If Jin continues to use the system to strengthen his cards, sooner or later others will suspect something wrong. At least now the genie needs to replenish the knowledge regarding the reinforcement masters. And just at that moment, the Academy's megastar Lydia sits down at the table next to our hero. At first, Jin wanted to talk to the girl, but then he realized there was nothing to talk about, so he just kept reading. From the book, our hero learned that maps can appear in 4 situations: birth by natural birth, birth by environment, by alien battle, by the creation of a master of cards. It is natural that the higher the rank of a card, the rarer it is found. High-ranked cards are always in great shortage. That's why there are boosters that can create new high-ranked cards by matching and merging cards with each other. In addition, a territory card type like Black Mist is very rare in itself, and it's incredibly hard to find higher-ranked cards like it. Reinforcing it is the best choice. Not to mention character cards that exist with their own territory, like Alice. They are rare among the rare and have an extremely high potential for growth. In general, enhancers should interact with the cards, look into their reveries, pay attention to their character and features to enhance them. However, the information about such things is very vague, so the amplifier needs to have not only a strong talent of perception, but also an over-the-top analytical ability to make the right choice in amplification. The process of amplification occurs because of this metaphysics. Therefore, the profession of amplifier is a noble one among cardmasters. If a person is a certified amplifier of the Alliance of Cardmasters, their future will be very bright and prosperous. Jean, for a second, even contemplated becoming one of those amplifiers, when suddenly Jean and Lydia both got messages at the same time. It was an emergency alert that the Blood Clan had begun an invasion of the human world. Upon learning of this, Lydia had no qualms about going to the infected land to help. Although Jin was much weaker than Lydia, but his rank and 2 attack cards were more than enough to help out. Plus, if the Blood Clan's attack fails, their power will assimilate into the human world and they will turn into cards. In other words, this is the perfect opportunity for Jean to get a new card. Due to the fact that the Blood Clan had sent out very strong monsters, Director Ben was restricting the entrance to the infected area. But even if you're strong enough, it doesn't mean you'll be let through. First, you have to be vetted and registered. But naturally, such formalities did not concern Lydia and all the students from the top. The other students were not happy with this arrangement. After all, this way they would have absolutely no chance of reinforcement. But Lydia decided to show the others why she could pass without checks or registration. Lydia has summoned the Horseman Mount, one of the greatest warriors of the card world. And then the genie casually said, as expected from a #1 ranking, such power needs no verification. After a few minutes, the turn came to the Jinn. Told to Principal Ben his intentions. But then Ben's attention was drawn to some strange noise in the woods nearby. Wow, that's power. Principal Ben was able to see Elise through her invisibility. At this moment, Jin realized how huge the difference in strength between them was. After passing the test, Jean entered the infected room as if nothing had happened. The other students didn't like it either, but that was their problem. Several hours had already passed since the Blood Clan attack had begun, and in that time, the infestation had reached the flora of the forest as well. The cause of this rapid infection was the commander of one of the Blood Clan's vampire squad. This isn't the first time they've invaded. The exploits of the legendary map master who defeated the vampire ancestor 40 years ago are written in textbooks. The Blood Clan's infected earth gradually sucks the secreted blood from the body until it dries it dry. This is the reason why you can't stay here for long. You need to clear the ground as soon as possible and leave. Suddenly, the genie is attacked by an infected willow tree. If she manages to wound the genie, he is not alive. It was lucky that Jin had read the information about the local monsters in the book before coming here. The infected willow's weak spot is their face. To finish them off quickly, Jin called Snowball to the rescue. By activating the airgate skill, the Snowball was able to dodge all of the monster's attacks and get close enough to attack. Whereupon the Snowball chopped the infected tree with its hairy spears. This skill uses the fox's fur as a weapon, strengthening it and releasing it from the body at tremendous speed. After defeating the first monster in the infested land, the genie gained a new card. At first glance, this card seems completely useless. No interesting or strong skills. Jean was even thinking of selling it to make some money for himself to eat. Especially the genie came here for a specific purpose. He wanted to get a map of the territory. But even if you add up dozens of maps of infected trees, it won't give the right result. Having strong card masters in this zone besides Lydia makes it even less likely to succeed. As strong as she is, she's still a student. When suddenly a girl riding a Belgian tiger ran out from behind the neighboring bushes. The girl was chasing a couple of miserable dogs. After finishing off the monsters, she took the beast cards and also quickly disappeared. Seeing this simply broke our hero, because having cards like Mount or Bengal Tiger, only masters of the highest ranks can have cards like this. Jin was well aware that with such competition, he would never get a map of the territories. The deeper the Jin traveled through the infected ground, the harder it became to walk, and it was impossible to take a normal step. After a few minutes, Jin found a small field where there was nothing, and then he heard behind him a strange sound resembling lightning. Turning around to see the cause of this sound, Jin saw something flying at him at an incredible speed. Miraculously, at the last moment, our hero and Snowball were able to dodge this attack. But what kind of monster did it? As the dust from the attack settled, Jin saw someone coming out from behind the forest. This monster was too far away to see who it was, but the silhouette made it clear that it was a monster in human form. But after a while, this monster got close enough, and the genie saw a girl attacking him. The vampire's aura was stronger than any Jin had fought before. Getting into a fight with a girl as he thought, Jin didn't really want to, because he was well aware that he had little chance of winning. So the first thing he did was activate the willow card to block her path. When the vampire saw that, she said, "You're funny. I wish we had time to play with you." Then the vampire smashed the tree into splinters with a single blow. But that wasn't the end of it. After destroying the tree, the vampire let her attack through the ground to stealthily grab our hero. Before Jin could realize anything, his arms and legs were completely wrapped around the branches, completely immobilizing him. The vampire didn't kill Jin right away. First, she calmly approached him and began to examine him from all sides. Fortunately, the Snowball came in time. With a sweep of his tail, the fox cut all the branches that held Jin and freed him. Stepping back, the vampire created a strange web of blood around herself, without saying a word. At that moment, the genie finally realized what kind of monster he was facing. After all, only true vampires have blood magic. But this time, too, A snowball saved Jean from certain death by blowing a hole in the bloody net. Judging by the way the snowball looked and trembled, another attack like that wouldn't be able to fend off. Meanwhile, the vampire was clearly not going to stop. She continued to attack Jin with her unique blood magic. There was no way to win this fight by brute force, and Jin understood that perfectly well. So in his head there was a very interesting but incredibly risky plan. But still Jin decided to take the risk, because this is the only way to come out of this battle victorious. And luckily, this plan worked. Jin took some of Snowball's light energy and added his spiritual energies to it to repel the vampire's blood attack. But just fending off another attack isn't enough to win. But Jin had taken this point into consideration. While he and Snowball distracted the vampire's attention, Alice used her invisibility to sneak up behind the monster and plunged her dagger into its back. Feeling death approaching, the vampire screamed, "Blood! Blood!" The monster activated the blood recovery skill. But it was too late for that. Alice's dark energy had already spread throughout her body, so there was no use trying to recover. For a while, the vampire tried to heal himself, but soon gave up, because he realized it was useless. And then the monster's expression changed dramatically. She looked at Jean as if she were glad it had happened that way. Happiness in her eyes. After the victory, as it should be, the genie got a card. Vampire. Grandis. Strange that the card type said human. Jin realized that he could easily lose at any moment, having studied all the available Grandis skills. If the vampire had activated the Blood Berserk skill, she would have killed them all in one blow. Jin was currently at the second bronze level, and the deck of cards was incomplete. Therefore, he doubted whether he should continue to go deeper into the Blood Forest. And to make his final decision, Jean decided to see what Grandis could do under his leadership. As soon as it appeared, it immediately approached the genie with incredible speed. Our hero thought it was going to tear him to shreds, but instead, Grandis just took hold of his face and stared at him silently with loving eyes. There was an incredibly deep spiritual connection between them. This is fundamentally different from just receiving a card. Jin was confident that thanks to Grandis S could greatly increase in strength and rise in the rankings. In the end, Jin still decided to continue hunting in the Bloody Forest, and it must be said, quite successfully. In a short period of time, Jin and his team were able to get 2 Willow cards and 1 Bloodwolf card. Only Grandis and Snowball participated in the hunt. At this time, Alice had a special assignment. Given her amazing spy skills, Jean has tasked her with finding a nest of vampires. There was also a deep spiritual connection between the genie and Alice, so she could apply the skill of vision exchange. By showing Jin what she sees, near the nest, Jin noticed something strange. There were cards lying around. That had fallen out of someone's bag, and in one of the cocoons, the genie got a glimpse of Lydia, who had been captured by the monster. How could someone that strong get into this kind of trouble? Realizing that if he procrastinated, all those people would die, Jin abandoned the hunt and ran to help. In the very center of the nest, Jin saw a royal willow tree, on the branches of which, weighed down by the students of the academy. Near the nest, Jean saw signs of a struggle, which meant that all these students had been taken by surprise, as suddenly, the royal willow tree began to emit a very loud, piercing scream, thus clutching its branches harder and harder. Jin realized that he couldn't delay a second longer, because if things continued like this, all the students would die, and it would be his fault. Jin ordered Alice to activate the black mist so that the royal willow wouldn't be able to spot them when they approached her. We need to act quickly and surely. That's why he ordered Grandis to enter the bloody berserk mode, and the snowball had to distract the royal willow as long as possible so Grandis could destroy it. For starters, Snowball launched a hairy needle at the monster, forcing it to defend itself. Just enough time for Grandis under the cover of the black fog. Alice got closer to the monster. Noticing Grandis, the royal willow tried to grab her, but all attempts were unsuccessful, getting close enough to attack. Grandis flew up and aimed her bloody spear at the monster's head, but the royal willow was faster. The moment Grandis was a few meters away from success, the willow grabbed her. The monster wrapped its branches around Grandis's entire body in seconds and began to drain her of all her juices. Jin was so shocked at what he saw that he was stunned. He didn't know how to proceed. While Jin was useless, Alice decided to waste no time and freed all of Willow's hostages, including the Grandis. Realizing that now he would not be fighting alone, Jin ordered the vampire back, so she could heal and rest, even though Grandis was the strongest card in Jin's deck. The gap between it and Royal Willow is too big. So, Jean decided to step back and let Lydia deal with everyone. After her captivity, the girl had too little spiritual energy left, but luckily, she had the right card to recover. After replenishing her balance of spiritual energy, Lydia used the Ice Spike card and tore the Royal Willow into 1,000 small pieces. Well, you have to admit, her strength is truly remarkable, and her coolness makes the blood run cold in your veins. That's it. Lydia had left absolutely nothing of the strongest monster in a matter of seconds. All his assistants back to the world of cards. Jean said, "Lydia, the weather's nice today. Would you like to grab a bite to eat?" But the girl ignored that question. Instead, she handed him the card and said, "Thank you for saving me." In gratitude, Lydia gave the genie a Royal Willow card. For a second, it's a rank 7 card. You can make a lot of money by selling it. And then Lydia turned around and just walked away, leaving Jin to deal with the other students alone. To carry 3 students alone, Jin was not capable of carrying 3 students. So for this, he summoned the Royal Willow to help. Of course, those of the students who woke up were scared to death that they were still being held captive by the monster. But Jin calmed them down by telling them that the monster was his now, and he would help them get out of the forest. While in the infected area, Jin performed quite well, defeated several powerful monsters and saved several students. As a reward, Principal Ben allowed the genie to take another random card from the hearth. We can say that today's raid for Genie ended very successfully. Grandis will become the new main force, and the rest of the unnecessary cards can be sold. And that's not taking into account the possibility of getting a new card from the academy. But one of the students at the academy that Jean Spas was quite unhappy with what was going on right now. But about that a little later, after such a busy day, went home to rest. Many people say that being a card booster is extremely lucrative. And it's true, Jean got rich overnight. The first thing Jin wanted to do was figure out what he should do next with the 3 cards of Infected Eves. Surprisingly, these cards were great for reinforcing the Grandis card. But Jin felt it would be a bad merge. So he decided to try another option and connect all 3 cards together. By combining 3 simple cards of Infected Willows, Jean got 1 card, the Royal Willow. Seems like combining the 3 cards together was a good idea. It's too dangerous to stay in the 7th rank bronze card world when oneself is only at the 2nd rank. Fortunately, after this enhancement, the Silver Jade Soul reached 24 points. If Jin goes to the academy to update his accomplishments, there's a chance he could move up in the rankings. At this point, as expected, Lydia still held the top spot in the rankings. But in 2nd place was already a new student named Bei. And then Jin remembered that Bei was one of the students he'd saved. After researching all the possible information on the academy forums, Jin learned that Bei was a so-called goddess. So news of her rescue quickly went viral all over the internet. Some people thanked Jin for saving her, and some demanded that he apologize for being so careless to the princess. Suddenly, Jean gets a text from an unknown number. "It's Bei, and I want to meet you." Even though she was super famous and influential, Jin wasn't burning with any particular desire to date her. Before Jean can answer the girl, an angry concierge bursts into his room. Staring at our hero, the woman shouted, "Okay, this can't go on. You haven't paid the rent for 6 months." Jean swore by all the gods that he would pay tomorrow. But our hero so many times promised to pay, that this time the woman did not believe him and evicted him. After the successful raid, Jin wanted to keep the unwanted cards for a while, but it looks like he'll have to sell them tomorrow. By the way, to strengthen Alice, the genie needs to get her a new sharp dagger. Or find her an assistant to help her with her black deeds. And Grandis is a lot more fun. Jean has to help her solve her childhood psychological traumas, or buy her a dainty umbrella so she can hide from the sun. At noon, the next day, Jin arrived at an organization called KDD to sell 2 Royal Willow cards. Seeing this pair of cards, the girl at the front desk asked Jean to wait for a while in the VIP box. While Jin waited his turn, he heard on the news that the Cardmaster Alliance had developed a compliance detector based on equalizing the connection between the card master and the cards. Compliance detector has now gained commercial popularity as a forerunner in the commercial card business. Upon learning this, Jin was greatly surprised at how much humanity had advanced in the study of maps. Besides, our hero wonders how his cards fit him. After all, he can use them without any problems. But the higher the suitability, the more effective they are. While Jin was thinking about it, the result of his card evaluation came in. KDD is willing to pay the genie 200,000 yuan for each card, and on top of that 10,000 as compensation. I had to admit, Jean was not only surprised, he was incredibly shocked that his cards were worth so much. After all, he had expected to make at most 5,000 for 2 cards. After calming down, Jin said, "Well, I think that's a very reasonable price. I'll sell them to you." And in addition, Jin managed to earn as much as 410,000. Even a month ago, Jin couldn't even imagine becoming a card master, but now, thanks to a unique system, he wasn't just a card master, but a card master with a huge amount of money in his account. As suddenly, Jin said, "And one more thing. I'd like to purchase some cards from your catalog. A wave of wealth has arrived, but the genie still has to plan his budget. But on the other hand, buying new cards is an investment in the future." When suddenly, the girl says that now their company has a special referral program where you have to get a unique knife, and then the genie had a dubious idea. He promised Bei to meet her if she followed the referral link. The girl realized that this was just another divorce by a huge corporation, but nevertheless Bei decided to do what he asks, to have Jin meet with her. But instead of a knife, Jin won 5 yuan. Well, to get another prize, you had to invite 2 people. Realizing that the chance of success was very low, Jin abandoned the idea and headed for the KDD sales room. According to his unique system, all he needs is a dagger for Alice and an umbrella for Grandis. On the display case, Jin saw a nice Viper's Kiss dagger, worth 80,000. It wasn't the strongest knife in the world, but it was much better than the one Alice had now. But for Grandis, Jin found a very nice Adele umbrella, worth 220,000. This price was due to the unique Blood Rush skill, even though it cost the genie a lot of money. But Alice and Grandis clearly deserved it. Besides, don't underestimate the role of magic cards in real combat. Therefore, Jin took more cards: Ice Spike, Earth Wall, and Ice Rain. With these cards, Jin can not only protect himself, but help Alice and Grandis in battle. When suddenly Janah's attention was drawn to a very strange card. It's called Psychic Recovery. It's a very interesting card, but Jin doesn't have any more money left on it. He still has to pay his license and rent. Before leaving, the genie decided to ask if KDD had a compliance detector. And what do you think? How they had it. In the past, cardmasters superficially divided the 4 stages accordingly. Now the measurement is very precise. To make it clearer, a gradation of numbers is used, where 0 is a complete mismatch and 100 is a perfect match. Luckily, because Jin was a VIP customer, the compliance check he can go through for free. This is just amazing. Jin has the highest level of consistency with each of his cards. That's incredibly rare. Even just purchased cards have a rate starting at 80. Perhaps the compliance is so high because of Jin's mysterious system. In order to keep it out of the public eye, the genie needs to get an enhancer ID as soon as possible to hide this ability. And you can only get this credential from the Card Masters Alliance. To get an amplifier license, you have to pay 30,000 yuan and pass a small registration and test. In the waiting room, Jin met Lydia, who greeted him for the first time. Judging by her appearance, the girl was agitated and very upset about something. She must have failed the registration for the card booster. To obtain an amplifier license, you must pass a random amplification test in 3 different rooms. Each room has 1 reinforcement card and 99 material cards, among which there are 3 or 4 possible reinforcement options. Grades are divided into passing, ordinary, and excellent. Only after passing all 3 reinforcements you can get the profession of an amplifier. It is virtually impossible to get a professional license by relying only on luck 3 times in a row. Only a true amplifier can pass this test. Though Jin Initial didn't have a card-reading disposition, here he is with a cheater system. So to pass, such a test is easy for him. In the first room, Jin had a young man of Osiris card waiting for him. It's an incredibly weak card, one that card masters use as a good luck charm. Thanks to the system, Jin learned that this card could be enhanced in 5 different ways, but only one suited our hero. More specifically, Jin merged the young man's A-service card with the stainless steel sword card, which upgraded the map from rank 1 to rank 3, so it could be considered that Jin had successfully passed the first room. Genie clearly still lacks experience as a card amplifier, but if he keeps practicing amplification, he will be able to reach his maximum potential. Meanwhile, Principal Ben was studying the results of Lydia's amp test. And I have to admit, all the cards have been amplified in the best possible way, and all without a hidden system like Jean's. All in all, it's an expected result considering Lydia is a modern genius. When suddenly, his secretary walked in and asked the director to check the results of one more candidate. Upon opening the folder, the director couldn't believe his eyes. It's the first time in his entire career that the fusion of 2 rank 1 cards has strengthened a card to rank 4. And the results of the other 2 rooms were equally astounding. The headmaster couldn't believe that another genius had appeared, and when the principal saw the resume of the student who took the test, he said with surprise, "So it's him." Not an hour later, Jean received the results of his test. All 3 rooms had passed with flying colors, when suddenly, Jin heard a pleasant female voice behind him, calling out to him. Turning around, Jin saw an incredibly angry Bei in front of him. The girl came closer and said, "I did you a favor, and how did you respond? You ignored it." Putting the gun to Jin's head, the girl added, "You think you can fool me so easily?" The genie threw his hands up in panic and said, "Bei, wait! I saved you. Why are you so angry?" And it's not that obvious. Jin did save Bei. But in doing so, he made her look weak and embarrassed her in front of her family. In fact, Bei was immensely grateful to the genie for helping her back then. But her family obliged her to wash away the shame. Realizing the absurdity of the situation, Jin said, "It's unfortunate, but what do you suggest?" The girl took a card out of her pocket and handed it to the genie and said, "This card is my thanks to you, and I want to challenge you." Bei wanted a public battle in 3 days. If the genie lost, he would have to apologize to the girl. And if Jin wins, Bei will never come after him again with goofy schemes like this. By the way, I forgot to tell you, Jin is now living in a luxury suite at Psy International. Overall, Jin didn't see his guilt in the Bei situation. But society had sided with the girl, so he had no choice but to accept her terms. Since the fight was unavoidable, Gina decided it was the perfect opportunity to test his strength, since Bei is the 2nd highest ranked, and she's also the princess of the Beastmaster clan. Jin's current strength level already surpasses some of the students in the top 10, so fighting Bei would be an interesting challenge. After resting a bit, Jin decided to start strengthening the cards he already had, and the first thing he decided to do was to give Alice a new dagger. If one were to conduct a normal fusion directly, Alice would receive the dagger under strange circumstances, and in return, Jin would receive less spiritual power. So the only sure way was to go to the world of cards and personally give Elise the kiss of the viper. Since Jin's last visit here, this world had changed a bit. It had become more alive and beautiful. Meanwhile, Alice was training as always to improve her fighting skills. Jin just watched her practice from the sidelines for a while. I don't know why, but every time Jin looked at Alice, he felt that they were bound by fate. Suddenly, the girl's workout was interrupted by a woman entering the gym. Apparently, this woman was our Alice's spiritual and combat mentor. While watching Elise, the genie didn't realize that as a hidden killer, her senses are extremely heightened. But this time, he seemed to have managed to remain undetected. It had been quite some time since Jin had last visited Alice's world, and she was now a fairly mature girl. And if Jin presents her gift in person, she may mistake our hero for a fan and refuse the gift. So Jinu comes up with a cunning plan. You can't just sneak into Alice's room because she lives in a sorority house. So Jin called Snowball to help. He had a better chance of getting into Alice's room unnoticed. Jin's intuition told him that when he left this world, the dagger would forever remain in this world. It's a unique way to amplify cards, but one that only Jin is capable of. When the girl came home, she found the gift and the letter just like the other day. In the letter, Jin wrote that he was proud of the way Alice had grown up, and wished her success in the future. Upon reading the letter, a flurry of emotions came over the girl. He realized that it was a gift from the same person who had given her clothes many years ago. Opening the box, Elise saw a small but elegant dagger in front of her. Viper's Kiss was the perfect dagger for Alice, for it suited her fighting style. The girl decided that she would become even stronger to repay the stranger for his kindness. After receiving the Viper's Kiss, Alice mastered it perfectly, and once again became the top student of her academy. And her map has gotten as high as 8th bronze rank, and the Shadow Gate now fills a large area. In addition, in her world, Elise has earned the right to be called an outstanding assassin. Now it's time to harvest the fruits of your hard work. Meditating, the genie began to absorb the spiritual power from amplifying Alice's card. Due to his personal involvement in strengthening the card, the genie gained twice as much spiritual power and was able to ascend as high as the 4th bronze rank. We're still a day and a half away from fighting Bei. It seems the higher the rank of the map, the higher the ratio of time to the real world. There was no hurry to strengthen the Grandis card, as it had an inherently high rank and it was too risky to go to its world. And then the choice was clear. It was time to venture into the world of snowballing. A lot had happened since the last time they'd met. Snowball, along with his mom, have been in constant hiding and trying to survive since his father's death. But you can't run forever. Sooner or later they'll get them. And so it was, the day Jean arrived at Snowball's card world. Snowball's mom, at the cost of her own life, saved her baby from a wild hyena. But having only killed the mother, the beast wasn't going to stop. But luckily, that black day in the foxes' lives came the day our hero arrived. Thanks to the power of the Grandis, Jin was able to eliminate the threat from the beast. And using the healing card he bought at KDD, Jin was able to heal Snowball's mom. Jin owed Snowball a debt of gratitude for that fight with Grandis. But now they're even. When Snowball found out that it was Jin who was their savior, he immediately jumped on him and started licking him. Suddenly something strange began to happen to the little fox. His whole body started to vibrate. At this moment, Snowball has awakened a unique talent. It's a bit like leveling up a character. Before our hero could figure out anything, the wild hyena he attacked came back again. Apparently this solid reaches the highest rank of bronze, so there's no way to defeat him with a single blow. Now Snowball's mom is in bad shape, and the fox cub himself can't be disturbed until he completes his evolution, so the genie will have to deal with the beast himself. It'll be kind of like a test drive of the cards before the fight with Bay. First card into attack, Jin decided to choose Ice Rain, to temporarily slow down the wild hyena, and damage it if possible. Unfortunately, it was impossible to slow the beast down or damage it with Ice Rain, but it was possible to make it angry. Luckily, in addition to attack cards, Jin also took care of defense cards, so he'll be able to defend for a while. Only the stone walls were no match for the beast. In a single leap, it broke through all of Jin's barriers. And then, it was time for Grandis to join the fight. She wanted to use the monster's enormous weight against him, and thrust her spear into his chest, except they didn't realize it wouldn't work on a monster that strong. The wild hyena had stripped Grandis of his weapon in seconds, and was ready to counterattack. Well, now what? The genie still had a few tricks up his sleeve. At the last moment he managed to activate the ice shield. The time gained was enough for Grandis to accumulate enough power to activate a unique skill. While in a state of bloody madness, Grandis created a tall pillar of blood energy and flew above the monster so that the sun would blind it. After which she aimed towards the beast, a hail of bloody spears. But the monster was able to repel the vampire's attack with his wind blades. Despite its huge size and clumsy appearance, this beast is quite fast. With every passing second, the situation was getting more and more complicated. And then Jin decided to take a risk. Meanwhile, Grandis has decided to engage in a mid-east battle with a wild hyena, but that was obviously a bad idea. Before Grandis could get close enough to attack, the monster jumped up and grabbed her spear with its jaws. Whereupon, the beast stripped Grandis of his left arm with its air blade. Seeing the girl rapidly falling down, Jin didn't think twice and ran towards her to prevent her from crashing to the ground. Luckily, Jin arrived in time and saved Grandis's life. Realizing I couldn't drink anymore, Jin decided to use his trump card, namely, Alice's shadowy leap. The girl, with a single swing of her new blade, slashed the beast's belly. Surprisingly, the skill Grandis, Blood Rush, not only restores health points but also regrows lost limbs. After regaining enough strength, the girl pointed at the monster and shouted, "Hana to you!" Blood spears. This time, Grandis's attack reached its goal and turned the monster into a drushlag. Fortunately, the fight ended in a victory for our hero. This fight cost Jin a lot of cards. If it wasn't for his high compatibility with Alice and Grandis, Jin would have been exhausted in the middle of the fight. It's also interesting that the wild hyena was only a subordinate of the mantis, the tyrant, and it was already so complicated. Just as suddenly, the beast's body began to hiss and wriggle strangely. Then huge beams of light began to erupt from the wounds. It looks like he decided to self-destruct. Seconds before the explosion, the Snowball mom covered her son and our hero. It was a really big explosion. The explosion blew away all the trees in a 10-meter radius, as if they weren't even there. But Gina didn't have a scratch on her. When the smoke cleared, Genie saw that Snowball was still evolving, and his mom was lying on Earth, not breathing. But you can't use the healing card a second time, because it has a 24-hour cooldown. But it turned out the mother fox was still alive. Looking into her eyes, everything became clear. She knew that everything will end like this. She knew she wouldn't make it, but was glad her son had a friend like Jean. For a while longer, the mother stayed by her son's side, but death came before she could say goodbye. As befitted, the genie buried Mama Snowball on a lonely hill and made him a promise that he would never betray or abandon him. Seeing how hard it was for Snowball to lose his mom, Genie thought about staying around for a while. But because of the battle, the supply of spiritual power was almost depleted as the Snowball began to emit a pleasant light. And moments later, the little Snowball turned into a full-grown and powerful fox. But once he reached the size of his parents, he didn't stop. He kept growing bigger and bigger. Is that even possible? Snowball simply turned into a giant fox-like man with lightning bolts appearing here and there around him. Like my friend Snowball said, "Thank you! And by the way, I'm a girl." Jean couldn't believe what was happening. This was the first time he had ever talked to someone from the world of maps. But it's more accurate to say they don't really talk. Thanks to evolution now, Snowflake can use telepathy. A snowflake, shared her greatest wish with the genie. She wanted to become the strongest fox in the world, to which the genie replied, "Yes, and so do I. I hope together we can achieve our goals." Though neither of them said it, they both want revenge on the tyrant mantis for the pain he brought to the snowflake's life. Before leaving, our hero said, "My name is Jean, by the way." And the snowflake answered him, "I don't have a name. Look, I used to think you were a boy and call you Snowball. But when I found out you were a girl, I started calling you Snowflake. But I think you deserve a real name. How about Asta?" Jean added. The fox, recognized in the genie his true friend, so gladly took the name Asta offered by him. By this time, Jean's supply of spiritual power is completely depleted, so he's forcibly returned home. After Jin's disappearance, Asta, alone, began wandering the dangerous forest, defeating vicious beasts in the invaded territory of the Fox clan. Asta has become incredibly resilient through battle. She had been on the brink of life and death several times, but she was always getting stronger as she struggled to survive. Upon returning home, Jin learned that the Asta card had risen to the 7th bronze rank. She also has 2 new skills and is no longer a snow fox, but a sky fox. After what happened in the card world, Jin felt he had full responsibility for Asta. After absorbing the spiritual power obtained from strengthening the cards, Jin reached half of the 4th rank of bronze. When suddenly our hero got a text from Bei about the time of the fight. It's scheduled for tomorrow at 9 a.m. Looking forward to tomorrow, Jin decided to go to the cafe. When he left his apartment, he shouted at the top of his voice, "I'll show you who I am." But then our hero caught a glimpse of his neighbor. What a coincidence. Jin and Bei lived in neighboring apartments. There was only one wall separating them. I have to admit, neither of them were thrilled to hear about it. The Academy administration has cleared out their best training room for the Jin-Bei fight. There were so many people who wanted to see them fight that some of them couldn't even fit in the stands. When suddenly, a blonde guy came up to the genie and said, "Hi, my name is Van, and I'm very grateful to you for saving me, Jin." At first, he didn't understand what he was talking about, but then he remembered that a guy wearing similar clothes had been captured by the Royal Willow. Among all the students, Van was hurt more than the rest, so he didn't have time to thank the genie that night. Before leaving, Van tried to talk Bei out of the fight, but the girl was adamant. Seeing how tense the situation was between the two of them, Jin said, "Don't worry about it. We'll just have a friendly duel." "Friendly, you say? Try not to die in the first 10 seconds, Van added sullenly. The boy's words made Jin a little wary, but he was sure the fight would go off without incident. As soon as all the spectators were seated and the clock struck 9 o'clock. "The bout has begun." Jin decided not to improvise, but to use an already proven tactic. Therefore, Grandis will be the first to enter the battle. Bei, in turn, applied the territory map of the Forest of Beasts. Considering that she is the princess of the Conquering Beast clan, a card like this is very predictable. Well, just because her attack is predictable doesn't mean she's not a threat, but Jin had something to counter that move. He summoned Asta, Ice Shield, and Ice Hail. Given the map of the area, the biggest threat is stealthy animal attacks. But Bei isn't the only one boasting hidden attack cards. Jin summoned Alice and activated the Shadow Gate. In the black as night fog, the beasts of the Bei were simply lost. They could see nothing further than their noses. And then the girl said, "That's it, Jin. I was expecting something more serious than black fog." Deliver another card, Bei added. "Watch you lose. Night vision." Now, all of Bei's beasts have a special skill that allows them to see through the black fog. In a matter of seconds, the serpent was able to locate Grandis and grab her. But this was his biggest mistake. Activating the blood madness, the girl cut the poor snake into pieces. And by consuming his blood, Grandis regained her health and strength. That is the true power of vampires. This was a turn of events Bei didn't see coming. To be honest, she thought she could beat Jin with one card. Meanwhile, the spectators were waiting for the black fog to clear. They could only hear the sounds of the fierce battle. And then in the nude, one of the students had the idea to use his peep chart. This map is like an X-ray. But thanks to it, viewers can see the fight in all its glory. Suddenly, the genie got a warning of spiritual powers. It means there's an enemy nearby. Looking around, Asta noticed an eagle Bei hovering directly above them and preparing to attack. But Asta, she took care of the problem very quickly. Grandis ended up with the serpent, and Asta dealt with the eagle, which leaves the tiger, which didn't take long. Thinking that Jin had let his guard down, the wild predator decided to attack from behind. But all the genie had to do was snap his fingers, like Alice coming out of nowhere and sending a tiger to the other side. That's what I call a true stealth kill. Seeing all 3 of her beasts defeated, Bei's expression changed drastically. The girl activated the Forest of 100 Beasts card, combining it with the Despair Resistance card. These cards didn't just resurrect the beasts, they also increased their rank. As the battle began to take such a turn, the genie also decided to unleash the full potential of his cards. And he started with an advanced form of Asta. While Asta is in this state, she is as strong as a tiger and even faster. Garandis, on the other hand, couldn't resist the ranked snake for long. Feeling superior, Bei came to the battlefield. She was more certain of her victory than ever. And it has to be admitted, not unreasonably so. If things continue at this pace, Jean will soon lose. And that's when Jean decided to use his last trump card. Right during the battle, the genie threw a card at Grandis to strengthen her. As you and I recall, this card was something Jean wanted to use in another way. But the situation made it necessary to give the gift now. In addition to the rank increase, Garandis also has a new skill: Blood Madness. Thinking this was another of Jin's tricks, Bei ordered all her beasts to go on the attack. But that was a huge mistake that could cost Bei victory. For the madness of blood can infect the blood of one's opponents and bend them to one's will. With the rhinoceroses, Garandis was quick. One swing of the umbrella was enough to scatter all the animals around. But the serpent, she decided to bend it to her will. Unexpectedly, Bei was attacked by her own beast. You'd have to be an idiot not to realize what just happened. And meanwhile, Asta was still fighting the tiger that was trying to come Bei to the rescue. And perhaps he would have had time to help his mistress if it hadn't been for Alice's shadow murder. Thus, Jin snatched a stunning victory from Bei's hands in a matter of seconds, leaving her no chance. You gotta hand it to the girl. She proudly accepted defeat and recognized Jean as the winner. When all of a sudden Bei said, "Jean, you played the white fox card pretty well. How about selling it? I can offer you a card 3 ranks higher." But Jean made it very clear that no amount of money would sell that card. To which the girl only smiled, pulled out some strange card and said, "Do you know what the difference is between an ordinary card master and a clan card master? The most significant difference between the two is the divine card. Did you really think I was going to let you win?" Bei added and summoned the divine Bengal tiger. Clans gather a large number of card creation masters and enhancement masters to create prototypes of legendary cards. After the birth of such cards, a special procedure of their strengthening from weak to strong begins to take place. As long as the clan follows this process of successive strengthening, the card will step by step acquire the features and skills of legendary cards. And as you have already realized, the divine card of the Bei clan was the divine Bengal tiger card. That's what Van meant when he told Jin to be careful. In the polluted land of the Blood clan, I just had an accident as my power grows day by day. Do you feel the gulf between us now? Bei said with a sneer. The girl offered the genie a deal. She leaves him alone, and in return he gives her the white fox card. But after what he and Asta went through together, Jin couldn't just give her up. Concentrating all the remnants of his spiritual power, Jin shouted, "No one will take away my Asta clear." At which point, the fox was able to escape the divine captivity of the Bengal tiger, which surprised Bei beyond belief. I mean, she was sure it was impossible. But that's not all. Jin gave some of his spiritual power to Asta so that she could transform into a giant white fox. When the fox's power reached its spiritual peak, Alice and Grandis were also able to break free from the captivity of the divine Bengal tiger. Jin didn't give up, for one simple reason. He promised himself that he would do his best to make sure his team achieved their dreams. And if he just gives up now, then all his promises are worth no more than dust. Jin believed he would one day become a divine fox. Alice would become the goddess of assassins, and Grandis by parentage of vampires. But Jin didn't just believe in it, it was his ultimate dream. After rejecting Bei's offer, Jin agreed to continue the fight. The girl thought this choice was foolish and self-righteous. After that, she activated 4 cards, 2 of which added strength, and the other 2 strengthened the body. But Bei, it was no coincidence that she used all 4 cards at the same time, because when activated at the same time, they create spiritual armor that completely protects the wearer. While wearing this armor, girls can ride the divine Belgian tiger, Jin, soberly assessing his chances of victory, which were tending towards 0 with every passing second. Right now, Bei is the strongest genie has ever fought, but there was no turning back. But this time, Jin decided to change his tactics and attack all at once. Asta had to restrain the Belgian tiger as long as possible, so that Alice and Grandis could deal with Bei's divine armor. The rest of the students were really shocked at what was happening. The fact that Bei had ridden her divine beast added a lot of problems. Asta would have to fight 2 of them at once. Luckily, this time the fox was able to escape, by transforming into its small form. Having reached a more suitable position, left again transformed into a higher form, to continue the battle. And in the meantime, Garandis had already reached her destination. Attacking her directly while she was wearing the divine armor was foolish. Therefore, Jin ordered to destroy the source of her power. After destroying the sacred tree, the vampire deactivated Bei's Forest Beast map. Without a territory map, Divine Bengal Tiger and Divine Armor lost a lot of power. And then Jin offered to end the duel and settle for a draw. But in response, Bei laughed and said, "Even without territories, your cards can't stand up to my type. You can't beat a clan master even without territories. Bei, you can't get everything just by wishing for it. And even money won't help you," Jin added. But Bei don't listen to our hero, and decided to continue the fight until a winner is decided. "When this is over, remember I offered to settle this peacefully," Jin said with a snap of his fingers. And at that moment, Bei felt a cold blade against her neck. Jin had proven that the bond between master and cards was far more important than money and status. Naturally, Alice would not take Bei's life, but nevertheless, the fight was over. The girl couldn't believe what had happened. The whole world she lived in had just been destroyed. All her life, she was sure she was above the rest just because she was the princess of a powerful clan. But Jin showed her that there were more important things than social standing and money. Catching the girl, Jin leaned towards her and whispered, "You shouldn't tie your pride and dignity to the clan. Ordinary card masters are just as good as clan members. What we need to do is to keep the cards in our hands safe, to constantly strengthen them and become stronger themselves, and to realize each other's full potential. And when you realize that your cards are your friends, you will discover unprecedented horizons of power." Meanwhile, the entire training hall was completely silent. No one could believe that Jin was able to win the duel with Bei. Principal Ben also observed their duel. He thought Jin was a kind and strong guy. He also had a unique talent for strengthening, when suddenly the mysterious woman behind the principal said yes. "Except that he's still at bronze rank. Let him be a level 2 observation object first." Derek, like most of the students, watched the fight. He, like everyone else, couldn't believe that Jin, who he thought was nothing, could defeat the princess. Seeing him freak out, Van said, "He's just a bug. But with your data, it will be impossible to surpass him. But I like you. I think you're pretty funny. So I want to give you a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that could change your life. For better or worse, it's up to you." Van offered Derek a deal. He gives him his lost map. And in return, Derek must capture and deliver Alice and Grandis to him. Of course, Derek couldn't resist an errant card. After all, it's almost as powerful as the divine one. Rumors of the powerful cardmaster, Jin, quickly spread throughout the academy. But only one of the students dared to approach the genie and speak. He said, "My name is Lu Hanch, but you can just call me Lu." Lu was third in the academy's ranking. Just like Lydia and Bei, Elle was a prisoner of the Royal Willow that day. But unlike the girls, Lu sincerely wanted to thank Jin for saving them with a delicious dinner. Jin and Lu met at Lu's favorite place that evening. Jin was pleasantly surprised at how kind and nice a guy Lu was, despite his high ranking. When suddenly, during dinner, Lu said, "Listen, I actually invited you here on a very important matter. I've heard a rumor. Nothing much, but I suggest you stay away from Van. I hear he started plotting against you." To Jin, this seemed very strange. After all, the Van gave a pleasant impression, but realizing that Van and Bei are close friends, Jin realized he didn't need a good reason to target Jin. Given that, Lu's words made sense. In the battle with Bei, Jin had revealed all his trump cards. Therefore, he needed to become stronger as soon as possible. Then, Jin asked Lu where he could get the assignment for the qualified boosters. In the world, there were only two good places to go. One was the Alliance Lab, and the other was the underground black market. Compared to the Card Masters Alliance, the black market procedure is less troublesome, and there is no commission. There are just a lot of requests for reinforcement, as it is much more profitable for both parties. So given the rush, Gina decided to opt for the underground black market. But before he goes there, Lu has to talk to his family to straighten things out, because a couple of students from the academy could attract a lot of attention in the black market. But before that, Jean decided to show off his amp card with honors. When Lu saw it, he said, "Impressive. You are underestimated by many. I've got a third frame bronze card that needs to be reinforced. If you help me reinforce it, you'll get 2 cards of reinforcement materials on commission," Lu added. Jin decided to help the guy with amplification to strengthen the alliance between them. After arriving home, Jin set about reinforcing the LU cards. Reinforcement was quite simple. Our hero did not even have to spend on materials in the world of maps. And the remaining 2 magic cards Jin combined with spiritual energy recovery and strengthened it to rank 4. However, because the genie has a low level of congruence with them, the feedback was too low. Well, that's not enough reinforcement, so we'll have to be wary of the van for a while. And then the genie had no choice but to go to the world of Grandis and strengthen it. Despite the fact that during the fight with Bei, Jin gave the vampire an umbrella, then this card acted as an auxiliary card. And in order for this card to be part of the Grandis, Jean has to personally hand her this umbrella. The card world of Grandis was the creepiest the genies had been in yet. In addition to the umbrella, Jean also wanted to find Baron Carlos, who had harmed the Grandis. The difficulty level of the Grandis map reinforcement is a few ranks above Jin's own level, hence the help and Astu. Jin ordered Alice to reconnoiter the situation before taking action. Don't engage the vampires head-on under any circumstances. But the trouble started right at the beginning. The entire forest near the vampire palace was filled with inferior vampires who couldn't keep their human form. Fortunately for our hero, these vampires turned out to be rather stupid and weak monsters. Despite their low intelligence, they could still talk, which means they could tell us something. Alice, in front of the vampire, destroyed all of his gathering, and when he was left alone, she presented the blade to his throat and said, "You will live if you tell me where Baron Carlos is." The blade near the vampire's neck didn't scare him as much as the thought of what Baron Carlos would do to him if he betrayed him. The girl, no longer seeing the point in keeping the vampire alive, swung her blade. Alice took the monster's life. Dying, the vampire whispered, "Peace at last. But know this, Ebbet will dry you up." But a while later, Alice caught another vampire, and this one was more talkative. He told me that the Baron was not in the castle at the moment, but that he had his guards, led by an abbot. After learning that the Baron wasn't at the castle, Alice asked the vampire what he knew about Grandis. According to the vampire, Lord Carlos personally turned you into a vampire and made you part of his family. But the girl resisted the vampire's will with all her might, and in time, she went mad, so they locked her up in the highest tower of the castle. When suddenly, the vampire mentioned that there would be a blood feast tonight in honor of the young princess. Having learned all she needed to, Alice stripped the poor vampire of his head so he wouldn't have to suffer anymore. The vampire's words matched the information on the map. Grandis has just become a vampire and is mentally unstable. I wonder what's the connection between Grandis appearing in the real world and Grandis in the map world. Apparently, the so-called invasion of another dimension seems to be different from one's own consciousness. But now is not the time to think of such things. Now is the time to strengthen the Grandis before arrives. It's fascinating that in such a dark world, Alice's stealthy assassination skill works flawlessly. The girl, single-handedly, finished off all the guards that guarded the main gate to the fortress. The only one who could truly hinder our heroes was the head of the guard, Ebbet. The thing is, he was a monster of the 8th rank, so you can't defeat him with a simple attack. But Jin had already fought a superior opponent. Just like last time, Asta had to distract the enemy for as long as possible so that Alice and Jeannie could find Grandis. Meanwhile, the girl was sitting in her room at the very top of the tower as always. Finding her chambers was quite easy. When Jin entered the room, he saw a man bound in a chair. Apparently, Lord Carlos brought Grande with food to break her human will, but there wasn't a single scratch or bite on the man. Which means Grandis's will is strong. So strong that she'd rather go insane than cross the line. Releasing the man, Jin ordered Alice to guard him while he spoke to Grandis. The vampire wasn't lying when he said the girl was on the verge of insanity. She was literally struggling to contain her desire for blood. The voices in her head kept repeating, "Blood, blood, blood." And then Jean put his arms around her back and whispered in her ear, "Come to your senses." When the girl turned around, Jin realized she didn't recognize him. "It's absolutely not important who I am. It's much more important who you are," Jin added. The girl was hysterical again. She couldn't stop screaming. Grandis begged the voices in her head to stop talking. Taking her hand slowly, Jin said, "Take your time. Think slowly. I know how hard this is for you, but you have to remember who you are," Jane added. And then the girl mumbled, "My name is Grandis. I am the Pearl of the Demon Slayer clan. My raison d'etre is to destroy all the monsters that oppress mankind. Well, right now I'm a vampire, because of Lord Carlos." The girl finally remembered who she was. And it doesn't matter who she was made to be. It's more important that she's still that grande dame. But there was still one very important question. What to do next? As a friend, the genie's voice became abruptly gruff and he said, "Kill. Exterminate them. They suck human blood and you beat their blood carrying the blood of their parents. Exterminate all these cursed creatures." Grandis, she knew it was the only way. But she also realized she couldn't do it alone. So she asked Jin for help. This was the perfect moment. Jean pulled out his umbrella as if nothing had happened, and promised that it would help her reach her goal. Meanwhile, Asta had almost defeated the abbot, but she wasn't going to kill him. A task Grandis had to accomplish, to take revenge and become stronger. After talking to the genie, the girl realized that it was pointless to fight hunger, because sooner or later she would bite someone. But instead of drinking the blood of innocents, you can drink the blood of your enemies. Before he died, Abbot said that Lord Carlos would never let Grandis leave the fortress. After sucking out the blood, not only did her mental body recover, but her strength reached a completely different level. Approaching the genie, Grandis said, "Thank you. May I know the name of my savior?" "Of course, my name is Jin. Tell me, do you have any plan for the future?" answered our hero. "I'm going to exterminate all vampires," the girl replied shyly. After which, our heroes hurriedly left the Lord's fortress before he returned. A few hours later, Carlos returned to his castle. When he found the body of the abbot, he immediately ran to the Grandis room. When the Lord saw that she had been kidnapped, he promised that he would find the culprit and make him his slave. The next morning, the Jinn traveled with the Grandis to the town of Armand. There they visited the Demon Extermination Association and told their story. The director of the association recognized Grandis immediately. After all, her family had been helping to exterminate evil for generations. Only out of respect for her family, the headmaster warned that Grandis would be executed because she had become a vampire. But it could have been avoided if Grandis becomes one of the association's hunters. Also, the headmaster gave the girl a piece of heliotrope jewelry, the wearing of which would hide Grandis's vampire affiliation. It would allow her to move freely in the human world. In other words, if Grandis joins the association, she can resume her normal life among humans. Joining a monster-slaying association is the best option in this situation. So the girl accepted the principal's offer, and became one of them. Wearing the necklace, Alice's body began to transform. Her hair slowly grew lighter, and her skin was no longer so pale. When the transformation was over, Jin saw an incredibly beautiful girl in front of him. She was the kind of girl you'd never guess was a vampire. It was very successful. Jin still had enough spiritual power left, so he decided to stay in this world for a few days. In the evening of the same day, the association received a letter from a neighboring village. The locals asked for help in the fight against vampires. It was the perfect first assignment for Grandis as part of the association. Jean decided to let Grandis go with Principal Ross. She must learn to handle things on her own. Jean still doesn't know much about Ross, but hopefully he's an honest and decent man who can take care of Grandis. The land around the village where the monsters were raging was completely contaminated, so there was no doubt that there were vampires here. At the entrance to the village, Grandis and Dews were greeted by an old man. You know what they say, trust, but verify. So after Grandis went on his first hunt, Jean followed him. This is the first time our hero has encountered a branching story in the card world. I wonder how it will affect the end result of the reinforcement. When suddenly, Alice activated a shared vision. Thanks to that, Jin saw that Grandis and Ross were being followed by a couple of men. It's a good thing he decided to follow him after all. Apparently it's not that simple. The old man gave the hunters a small house at the edge of the village so that they could rest and start hunting tomorrow with renewed vigor. Unfortunately, due to the panic of the townspeople, most of the evidence was simply trampled. But there's no point in dealing with it now. Best to wait until tomorrow morning I watch instead of the crime. When suddenly Asta appeared out of nowhere and knocked the mug of tea out of Ross's hands with her tail. "What the hell? It's Gina the Fox! What's going on here?" shrieked the Ross. But when he saw the old man's tea begin to dissolve the floor, it came to him that they had just been attempted murdered. Some moments later, Jean and Alice, who had taken the old man prisoner, enter their house. The old man wasn't lying when he said the village was attacked by vampires. But he'd completely forgotten to mention that they'd made a pact. The vampires will stop attacking their village and killing their people. And in return, the old man must provide the vampires with food, preferably monster hunters. When Grandis heard about it, she said, "Do you realize what you just tried to do? You're traitors who went along with the vampires." And then the genie cried out in surprise, "Why are we traitors?" But the genie got it all wrong. The girl was talking about an ancient community of heretics, who swore allegiance to vampires and helped them. Although vampires are the sworn enemies of mankind, there are many among humans who worship vampires and covet their power. In other words, heretics are also monsters, but in human bodies. It's been years since anyone's seen a settlement of them, but they'd just been cleverly hiding the whole time. And that's when Jean had an idea. Jin wanted the old man to call his masters and tell them it was successful. In simple terms, Jean proposes to trap vampires and have a real monster hunt. Hours later, the vampires arrived at the old man's call. They found the two hunters, just as the Eretites had promised. They were eager to sink their nasty fangs into the soft neck of our heroes. And what a surprise it was to them when Jean hit one of them on the head. But there was nowhere to go. John and Alice blocked their way. But these guys weren't scared. For them, a fight was better than any holiday. When suddenly one of them shouted, "Are you sure you want to do this? We have your friends." But he was wrong about that too. I think it's worth mentioning that instead of vampires, it was the older Eretites, who live in the vampire lands. Grandis was incredibly angry. The anger was so strong that the girl accidentally bypassed into bloody berserk mode. Clattering to the floor with her umbrella, Grandis pierced her enemies with hundreds of bloody spikes, then collected their blood through blood transmutation. But the girl just wanted to stock up for a rainy day. She wasn't going to beat human blood. When it was all over, the elder finally revealed the truth. In fact, his men didn't really belong to the Eretites. They were just hostages in the whole situation. Ross and Grandis forgave the old man, because they realized that he had no other choice. They also knew that the work of hunters was dangerous. Well, it looks like Grandis has finally found its place in the world. After saying goodbye to the Ross and Grandis, the Jinn returned home. Thanks to Grandis, the Ross Bureau completed the assignment with high efficiency and gradually gained reputation. And the power of Grandis also began to grow rapidly due to the completion of many assignments. During an errand, Grandis encountered a 9th-ranked vampire and defeated him. After consuming his blood, Grandis underwent a powerful change. After her return, the Gratis card changed a lot. The girl became more joyful. All of her stats increased several times, and the map rose to the 9th bronze rank. On top of all that, Grandis also gained 3 new skills. Human Heart. This skill allows great control over your life. Blood Excitement speeds up regeneration, and Blood Blast can cause a powerful explosion. While in the world of cards, Jin fulfilled 2 conditions for reinforcement. He gave Adele a 6th-rank umbrella and helped her escape from Lord Carlos's captivity. After such a powerful enhancement, Jin was confident that the card's spiritual power was enough to advance to the 5th rank of bronze. Unfortunately, that was the end of it. The author did not create any more new chapters. If you liked this video, please give it a like and write the word blood in the comments.